This weekend I brought 3 robots to the Illinois Bot Brawl. The first is this crazy swerve drive vertical spinner that I called Space Ninja. The second is the triangle thing that I built. It's another vertical drum and it is called Future Killer. And of course I also brought the Crave Monster. This was a total rebuild and hopefully this will be more competitive than the past experiments I have tried. Let's start with Space Ninja. This was one of only 4 robots in the first round of the Beetleweight bracket, and it was up against Vector, which was a nasty horizontal spinner made by Jeffrey from Endbots. Also shout out to Ricky for these 360 videos, link below to his YouTube channel and Twitch stream. In preparation for fighting a horizontal spinner, I had very little weight to work with, but I added some vertical carbon fiber rods just to try to keep the blade out from my wheel pods. I knew those weren't probably going to hold up, but I needed some sort of protection for the wheel pods from that horizontal spinner. When the fight begins, I'm really careful to watch the way that his blade is spinning and hit on the advancing edge of the spinning blade. And the first 2 exchanges, surprisingly, my bot stays upright. And after that hit, I start to lose some mobility. This robot is 6-wheel drive, and it seems like 1 or 2 of those wheels are starting to fail and then just drag on the ground, causing some unnecessary resistance and really slowing it down. And after that hit, Vector is flipped, and I bent the Vector frame in a previous hit, so now the frame is dragging on the ground and you can't really get any traction. But I myself am having struggles, and switching into sideways swerve mode kind of helps get the wheels to contact the ground, but in general I'm starting to lose drive as well.
Come on! Come on!
I'm able to meander over for one last hit, and at this point I'm now starting to just kind of wait for him to come to me.
No!
Kind of hoping that the weapon vibrations are able to... Yep, that didn't help. Sorry about the arena. And it looks like Vector is slowly working his way over to me, and that hit removes my weapon belt. Not quite sure how, but it does. And now my drive is free, finally, and I'm able to get Vector pushed towards the pit. And somehow, with me pushing Vector towards the pit, Vector's drive pretty much done, my weapon done, this fight goes the full 3 minutes, which is really surprising for 2 robots with this amount of power. This was a close one, and the judges select Vector. I check out the damage, and the frame rails are pretty bent up. Not from any hits, but just from the warping due to my own weapons forces. The UHMW chassis damage, and then Vector's blade did hit the front of the vertical uprights, which bent them pretty bad, such that the blade can't spin freely anymore. Surprisingly though, the wheel pods were not touched. The little carbon fiber rods I added all broke off, but they did enough to protect the pods, which are surprisingly still functional. Although some of the wheels are stripped, they were just 3D printed press fit onto the shaft, and that did not hold up in Beetleweight class, so I'll have to fix those later. Next up are the ants, and I'm against Happy Gnome and Taster. Future Killer is against Taster, and this is a fitting rematch. Last year I went against Taster with Danger Zone, and Danger Zone self-destructed. This year Future Killer has the same drum as Danger Zone, but a much more durable body. And the hits start, and eventually Taster is no more, upside down, and the self-righting forks are bent. So that is it. I'm really happy to have a redemption with a vertical drum bot, because it's been a while since I've actually had success with one of these drum Antweights. Next up, the Crave Monster is against Happy Gnome. This is another robot I've faced before. It's a horizontal spinner. And right away, Crave is really quick, and then Crave just slows down to a crawl. Something is clearly wrong, but I don't know what.
Any little indentation or bump, you get them caught up.
Luckily for me, Happy Gnome does lose its belt, so it has no weapon, but something's wrong with Crave. I'm able to get Happy Gnome in the mouth, but then I've got no pushing power, the mouth is not really working anymore, and this kind of just becomes a really boring shoving match. So this match just drags on, and it goes to the judge's decision, which the Crave wins, somewhat anticlimactically.
I wish it was that simple.
After this competition, though, I go back and I find that I am actually using a bad battery. One of the cells is completely dead on it, and that's the cause. So I swap that out, and hopefully this will be back in a little better next match. Now, back in the Beatles bracket, it is time for me to get Space Ninja back up and running in order to face Cheat Code. Taking a look at the wheel pods, the right front wheel seems to be my biggest issue, but all the other ones are a little loose. These were all 3D printed wheels that I press fit onto the shafts. It's a great strategy for Antweights, but it clearly doesn't work for Beetleweights. As you can probably imagine, this robot doesn't really have good access to the wheel, so I have to snip off some 3D printed parts in order to get access, and I'm able to just epoxy the wheels back on. And while I'm at it, I do add some reinforcing epoxy to the left wheel pod as well. I replace a battery that I destroyed due to not having enough weight for an electronics cover, and then I take an angle grinder to those bent front uprights. And with that, we're back and ready to face Cheat Code.
Fight, robots, fight!
Vertical drum bots are great at flipping opponents, and Space Ninja has lost the self-righting roll hoops from the previous match, so several seconds in, it's already stuck on its face.
6, 5, 4.
You can see I'm running the blade backwards a little bit, trying to push it back upright, but without those roll hoops to assist, it's pretty futile.
All right, we're good. All right, that's the end of the match. Your winner is Cheat Code.
After that quick match, the only real damage is the stripped wiring on the right wheel pod, which happened when I asked him to hit me one more time in an effort to get to flip back upright, but that'll be pretty easy to repair in time for the Rumble. In round 2 of the Antweights, the Crave Monster is against This Is a Test, and Tirade is facing Future Killer. First up, we have This Is a Test, which is a horizontal spinner. You can see that their chassis is entirely printed with carbon fiber infill nylon, but as an homage that I'm quite proud of, there's a little bit of foam board tacked on the outside.
1, fight!
And right off the bat, the battery replacement helped, and the Crave Monster is a lot faster. One thing that is different though is the mouth is harder to position accurately. I moved to motors to control the mouth instead of a servo. This allows me to self-right, but it does make it harder to position the mouth at a specific angle.
So Crave Monster, a lot of his armor is just soft foam, so he's able to take those hits and keep on going.
No more weapon?
At this point, there's a little bit of debris caught in the weapon motor of This Is a Test, and their spinner stops. So I can kind of take my time, try to push them around, and don't really have to worry about taking any damage at this point. The clicking you see is due to the motor that controls the mouth having a clutch in it. I forgot to super glue the clutch, and that means the motor slips, and that causes a little bit of vibration. At this point, the match is going in my favor, I feel. I've pretty much kept This Is a Test in the corner of the box most of the time, but at the very end there's a couple exchanges where he's able to get some pushes in. I've still struggled to get him to the trap door, but here I'm getting close, and right when I get at the level of this trap door, the weight of his robot kind of presses the front lip of my robot down into the ground, and we both get stuck, which leads to the one allowable unstick in the match.
3, 2, 1, go! Only 10 seconds remaining. 5, 4.
There's a couple more exchanges where I'm able to get him in the dustpan and push him around a bit. And then it goes to the judges, and the judges favor This Is a Test. On to the next. Next up we have Tirade, which has this really powerful brushless drive and a spring steel front wedge, which is really hard to get a good catch on.
3, 2, 1, fight!
This match starts with Tirade pushing Future Killer up on top of it. Surprisingly, the front wedge of Future Killer did not win the wedge game this time. Even once Future Killer regains composure, it's not able to get a good bite on Tirade. Tirade's super fast flipper might not be good for flipping, but it's pretty good at getting it out of tricky situations. Future Killer gets Tirade right on the trapdoor. and he manages to escape.
That was close.
You'll see here periodically Nick's robot stops driving. I think he's having some brownout issues with the receiver, but it then just suddenly comes back to life, so it seems to be intermittent.
Front wedge is looking a little bit crooked, but he's still got mobility. Feature Killer, you can see his weapon when it spins up, the gyro forces make it hard to turn, so it ends up doing this little dance, lifting its left and right wheel off the ground. Physics is fascinating.
And after a couple non-damaging scuffs, it looks like the receiver issue finally killed Tirade, and it's no longer moving. So Future Killer moves on, and now in the losers bracket we have the Crave Monster versus Chopped Salad. Now I know that Chopped Salad is not invertible, and this new Crave is designed to be a lifter. So actually keep the mouth closed and run at him, trying to then lift the mouth open, flipping him on the back. This strategy doesn't work, and Chopped Salad throws the mouth open and a piece goes flying. And then the whole robot falls upside down, and we're kind of stuck together with Chopped Salad's disc coming through the top of the mouth. And here's where the invertibility of the new Crave comes in. I am very happy that it took me 4 years, but the Crave Monster can finally flip itself back over in this type of situation. And Chopped Salad ends up in the pit. I then quick add some more foam board where there's some pieces that are missing. And next up, still in the losers bracket for Crave, is Tirade again. He came down to join me in the losers bracket.
Fight, robots, fight! Crave Monster coming out fast. Get that low scoop. Oh! Tirade's lifter's making him hard to chomp down on.
Most of this match, Tirade is just moving the lifting arm wildly while Crave tries to kind of corral him towards the pit.
Open. Oh, Tirade!
And eventually I'm able to make that happen.
Your winner is Crave.
Back up in the winners bracket, I faced This Is a Test Mark II again, this time with Future Killer. This match will be a real test of Future Killer's ability to turn with all those gyroscopic forces. This Is a Test makes that back wheel, and the next exchange makes Future Killer go flying, and it lands on the side. And without that back wheel being able to spin, Future Killer can't drive like this. So that is a bummer, and Future Killer is now out of the winners bracket and will be going to the losers bracket. The actual damage is not too bad, but was a bit surprising. So the rear wheel, that whole motor is all gummed up. That's expected. But the weapon was completely frozen. I didn't know why, but I realized that it actually caught a bit of the chassis with a tooth and folded the chassis back in on the weapon, and that prevented it from being able to rotate. Simple fixes though, I replaced the rear wheel and I cut away the chassis, and I'm able to free up the weapon. While I'm doing repairs, I do notice that one of the back wheels on the Crave Monster is free spinning, which means I stripped some of the gears and the little gear motors here. And this is what happens when you use 1000 RPM motors for a larger diameter wheel. I replaced the gear motors and things are good to go. And now I'm ready for Arsenic versus the Crave Monster and Future Killer versus Quicksilver in round 4 of the losers bracket. First up is Arsenic, and of all the horizontals that I've faced in this competition, this will be the heaviest hitting.
2, 1, fight! Crave Monster coming right now. Ooh, and there's foam everywhere! Arsenic taking chunks out of Crave Monster. Ooh, big hit there.
He's cleaning up as he moves around.
Ooh, bounced off the wall. Just maneuvering there. Trap door get open soon. Trap door is open. Ooh, big hit. Oh!
So if you didn't see, this big hit threw Arsenic into the trap door, and it was a bit of a contentious win because I couldn't move initially, but it was just because I was stuck on debris, and I was able to demonstrate motion later, even though the robot was pretty totally destroyed. Before I could start repairs though, I had to face Quicksilver, and I was pretty happy with this matchup because Future Killer had done a good job at grabbing and throwing other wedge bots. Early on, it's pretty clear to see why Quicksilver is still in this competition. The driver is really good at getting around to the sides.
Need just a little more speed.
And it's right here where Quicksilver starts to realize that he can just plow right into the front without catching my weapon.
You need more speed.
Oh, it's so close. It's like your
There are a
wedge
couple
is too
reasons for this,
flat.
but it really comes down to the geometry of my flexi spring steel wedge. It's very arc-shaped, and in the future I need to make it more of a direct, flat piece of steel.
There you go. Let him push you into the back of the wall.
Yeah, and then we'll feed him into the weapon.
Another minute goes by with Future Killer doing nothing of note, and then the match ends with Future Killer pinned against the wall, really kind of just being bullied around the box. This goes to the judge's decision, and Future Killer rightly loses this one. So now the scrap of Crave is all I have left in the competition. I have no more weapon motor to drive the mouth, so I just tape the mouth to a piece of spring steel. I replace the front left wheel, and I'm next going to be going against this flipping bot, so I add these little pegs in the back to help keep me upright, because I no longer can self-right. So time to face Shinju with no self-righter. Let's go. The first 2 minutes are me just pushing Shinju around. He gets one flip in, but my little back pegs have saved me, and I'm just trying to get him towards the pit. But he starts to push me towards the pit, and I try to back away from him, and I back into the pit myself. And that is it for the Crave Monster. All in all, a decent mid-pack run for the Crave Monster. Not great, but I'll take it. I add this experimental lifting arm in preparation for the Antweight Rumble. So on to the Rumbles. Enjoy. And I back full speed right into that weapon, and the back left tire is broken from here on out. Also, I'm kind of stuck on his bot.
Someone hit Crave!
Yeah, somebody come over here and help me. Under the crave.
Come on. There we go. Yes,
Oh, 2 robots in the pit. Trying to come up with some commentary, but it's kind of sensory overload. Oh, another robot in the pit. Two minutes remaining match. Oh, big hit on the flipper.
Yeah, there's air tank. Air tank. Air tank. Get the air tank. Not the electronics. No. No, my wheel. That came off. Can someone take the back left wheel of Crave off.
Yeah.
It's causing issues
Somebody
right
come
now.
help me? Yeah, I'll get your wheel.
Yeah, just like get it to come off. No, that went bad.
Now my battery's dying.
Tyrant gonna save us or cause more problems?
1 minute remaining in the match.
Yeah,
30 seconds remaining.
yeah. Hit the air tank.
My driving messed up.
Mine is 2. We're struggling.
My battery died.
It's kind of hard when they have one wheel.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's the end of the match. All right, so the way we decide winners now is whoever is capable of driving back to a door under their own control, fully operational. Please remove your robot and then place it on top of the arena in the front after you power it down.
Now time for the Beetleweight Rumble, and I'm kind of surprised I have a fully functional robot for this, honestly. The one issue is that those bent front uprights sometimes will catch the blade, which then slows the blade down, so it doesn't quite maintain the full spin up speed that I'd want.
Trap door is open. One robot down into the pit.
And the D2 kit takes me into the pit, along with a bunch of other robots.
We're pausing for 1 moment. Please pause. We're going to remove the robot that has an exposed battery. We don't want any explosions or anything.
Get me out of here.
And then we'll resume.
Drive in the pit. He's driving in the pit.
Alright, something jumped already.
All right, do we good? Is somebody else still powered on in the pit? I hear noise down here.
Yeah,
Oh, there we go. Now it's quiet. Okay. All right, so we still got 3 minutes left, and the timer resumes in 3, 2, 1. Resume. Oh, okay. Oh. Parts flying everywhere. Pieces of robots everywhere.
Kill him more!
it up into the ceiling. A minute and a half remaining in the Rumble.
Free that one.
Oh.
Oh yeah, I have a robot in here. Do anything. Somebody at least push me in the pit so I can die with glory.
1 minute remaining. 60 seconds. All right, no one's fixing the Rumble. Got 3 contenders left. Oh!
Finally, the second D2 is able to clear the arena for the win.
I can't remember what name that one was. Is that Chucky Monkey or